Currently, he serves as the Additional Director General of Police in Tamil Nadu Police. He enjoys bird watching and bird photography. He plays cricket and badminton and has represented the Tamil Nadu Police in both the sports. He is also an avid crossword enthusiast and has won several crossword contests. I now request Mr. Vineet Wankede to deliver his speech.
Good morning to all of you. I hope I'm audible.
You are.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Rotary Club of Chennai Utsav for giving me this opportunity to speak on a topic which is really close to my heart and also taking up the cause of dyslexia. I'm a parent of a dyslexic, and during this journey, I also discovered that I am a dyslexic too. I'll commence my presentation because we are really short of time. The topic is reading dyslexia correctly towards clarity and optimism. First, few basic facts about dyslexia. Dyslexia is way more common than we think. Various studies have shown that at least 1 in 6 to 1 in 10, that is 10% to 17 to 18% of population is dyslexic. This is a very substantial number. Secondly, certain dyslexic traits like difficulty with reading and writing are universal. Yet every dyslexic has his own combination of various degrees of these traits. Thirdly, dyslexia is predominantly genetic. Earlier it used to be believed that dyslexia is caused by prenatal complications or premature birth or even childhood trauma. However, recent researchers have established that the cause of dyslexia is primarily genetic. Role of parents is very critical. I request parents of dyslexic children to understand that it is the child which is facing the condition of dyslexia. Your child is lonely and in pain. And where is this pain coming from? Pain is coming from the school, which is based on total transfer of knowledge only based on written word, with which the dyslexic child is uncomfortable. It comes from relatives who constantly compare the child with other children on academic performance. It even comes from friends who make the child realize in subtle way that he is different. So the question before the parents is, do you want to add to the pain or alleviate the pain? Parents of dyslexic children must understand that your child is going to become adult one day. And by the time he becomes adult, he would have learned to manage his dyslexia or overcome the dyslexic limitations. But will he overcome the pain and bitterness? How do you want him to remember his childhood and your role in that? I'm sure all of you would like him to remember that parents were the people who stood behind him. Researchers have shown that every successful dyslexic, and most dyslexics are successful, every successful dyslexic credits his success to at least one parent who was supportive and one motivational teacher. So the role of parent is very critical. Let us come to the plight of the parents. So this presentation is from the perspective of the parents. I'm not a dyslexia expert, but sometimes you need an outsider to make things more clear. But once a child is identified with dyslexia, the first reaction is of a shock. What has this happened? What is this? Then so many information is given to the dyslexic parents by the assessors or dyslexia experts. So basically the state of mind of a dyslexic parent of a dyslexic child is that of a confusion. That is the initial stage as soon as the dyslexia is identified in the child. From this stage, the dyslexia expert take the parents to the next stage, where they tell the parents that don't worry, we'll simplify things for you. Leave all this terminology of dyslexia and other things aside. Just understand that it is a brain thing, something related to brain. And it is associated with certain problems. Problem number one, your child will have difficulty with reading and writing. But don't worry, there are interventions to improve reading and writing skills. Then there is a technology which will help you in reading assistance. And there are concessions often offered by boards. We'll be having separate presentations on this topic subsequently in this webinar. Then they tell you there's problem number two. Your child will have physiological issues, coordination issues, concentration issues. Occupational therapy, sensory integration, diet regulation will be offered as solutions. Then there is a problem number three. Your child will have daily activities issues. Simple things like brushing teeth or taking bath. Solution will be offered in form of inculcating discipline of routine. It doesn't stop here. There's a problem number four. Your child will have psychological issues. Means self-esteem issues or anger issues. Psychological counseling for building self-esteem or addressing anger issues will be offered as solutions. Unfortunately, it does not stop here. There's a problem number five. They tell you that your child will have social relationship issues. Relationship within family, with sibling, but with friends. And they will offer strategies, psychological strategies for improving, helping the child in developing relationship. So what is the sum total of the stage 1 and stage 2? The parent was confused earlier. Now he is in despair. He comes to conclusion, the parents come to conclusion that dyslexia is nothing but a bag full of problems. My poor child, with some help, will somehow survive in this world. So survival in the world becomes a maximum objective for the parents. And they also think this example of famous dyslexics these people give me about Einstein or Da Vinci or Edison or Richard Branson, Steven Spielberg, all that is meaningless to me. How does it connect to my child? This is the purpose of this presentation. We have to move from despair to clarity and optimism. Let us start with history of dyslexia. The term dyslexia was coined in 1896. A child could not read. Parent assumed that something is wrong with the eye. The child is taken to an eye doctor, ophthalmologist. Ophthalmologist examines the eye, finds everything okay. So he coins the word dyslexia, difficulty with reading. From 1896 to 1990s, for over 100 years, the focus of dyslexia research was on treating dyslexia as a disorder or disability or a dysfunction and finding remedy or cure for it. I'm not belittling this research. Fantastic research has happened which has helped us to develop techniques leading to reading and writing improvements or occupational therapy. However, in 1990s, a new research has started looking at dyslexia and understanding dyslexia in a different manner. That right side of the brain is the creative brain and left side of the brain is the logical brain. Starting from that, a lot of research has happened. In this research, they clearly established that dyslexia has a lot of advantages and specific dyslexic strengths. So today, dyslexia is not viewed as only weaknesses for which assistance is required, but also a lot of strengths which need to be unlocked for the dyslexic child. These are the two pioneering works. I would request parents of dyslexic children to kindly go through this. In 1994, Ronald Davis published the book called Gift of Dyslexia. He was the first one, earliest person to propound that gift has a lot of advantages. In 2012, Dr. Ides, Brock and Furnett, they published the book Dyslexic Advantage, in which, with a detailed scientific research, they clearly established and specified which are the dyslexic strengths, how to use them in education and how to use them in career. My presentation is mostly based on this seminal book by Dr. Ides, The Dyslexic Advantage. So what is the core message of the new perspective? The core message is that individuals with dyslexia are talented, not in spite of their dyslexia, but because of their dyslexia. In other words, strengths and weaknesses are simply two sides of the same neurological coin. Till now, we have only been seeing the weaknesses side. It is time we see the other side of the coin where the dyslexic advantages lie. I have tried to summarize the new perspective of dyslexia in as simple as I could make it. The new perspective on dyslexia goes like this. Dyslexia is caused by different brain structure, different brain wiring, different brain structure, not defective brain structure. There's nothing wrong with dyslexic, they are just different. Different brain structure means different data processing. Brain is basically a data processing unit. So dyslexics process data differently because their brain wiring is different. Different data processing is the source of the dyslexic strengths. At the same time, the same different data processing leads to difficulty in common data processing, that is the reading and writing skills. Different data processing also means that the learning style of dyslexics is going to be different. That path will be different. So why do you call it advantage? If we compare a dyslexic and non-dyslexics on the different kinds of processing skills, you'll understand why it is called advantage. Let us take common data processing skill like reading and writing. Dyslexic has difficulty in reading and writing, but he can overcome this with training, effort, and time. By the time dyslexics are teenagers or adults, most of them learn to manage reading and writing skills to some extent, to a reasonably good extent. On the other hand, non-dyslexic is very comfortable with reading and writing. When we come to unique data processing skills of dyslexics, these are inherent in dyslexic. On the other hand, non-dyslexic does not possess that, or cannot acquire that because these are inherent. So the score is 2:1. That is why it is called an advantage. It is very important for us to understand the difference between spoken language, written language, and knowledge. Now, what is spoken language? Tongue makes different kinds of sounds. These sounds are joined together to make syllables. Different syllables joined together to make words. Words joined together to make sentences, which we use to describe the world around us or our emotions and feelings or communicate with each other. Written language, on the other hand, is just representing those sounds into symbols. Knowledge is understanding of the world around us. All three are independent. It's important to note that. A person can be very knowledgeable without having knowledge of written language. But this is important to understand. Difficulty in reading and writing is just that, difficulty in reading and writing. It is not a barrier to knowledge or intelligence. Another important concept we need to understand: verbal and non-verbal conceptualization differences. We think that we think in words. Actually, it is not true. We have been trained to think in words. We have the expression at loss of words. There are things which we cannot describe in words. So there are two kinds of thinking: verbal conceptualization, thinking in words, and non-verbal conceptualizations. Here is where the dyslexics differ from the non-dyslexics. They do not think in words. Their primary thinking is non-verbal. Now, what is this non-verbal thinking we are talking about? So I would like you to read the Einstein's quote here. I'll not read it out the whole thing, but basically saying that my thinking is not in words. I think in psychical entities, which my elements of thoughts are more or less clear images and signs. It is also important for us to understand that dyslexic trajectory is going to be different from a non-dyslexic trajectory. When we try to thrust this non-dyslexic trajectory on a dyslexic, the pain arises. So what is a dyslexic trajectory? And this trajectory is on basis of universal research. You can check it with any dyslexic adult, how he felt or how he looking back his years, how it was. The summary of it is like this. School is the most painful period of a dyslexic child for obvious reasons. The dyslexic child starts to bud somewhere around college, where the dyslexic strengths start coming into play. And by the time they go into, their dyslexic strengths have totally bloomed and they also bloom. This trajectory is not easy to change, but it is easy to accept, and management of dyslexia around this trajectory is very fruitful. Now, what are this? I'll come to the dyslexic strengths, specific dyslexic strengths now. Dr. Ides have coined a very nice, easy to remember acronym for this, MIND. There are 4 strengths, MIND. I'll come to the strengths afterwards. What we are going to do today is, each strength will see what is the strength, what is the flip side of the strength. As I told earlier, the strength and weaknesses are opposite sides of the same neurological coin. The same brain structure which gives them the strength also causes certain weaknesses. So which are the strengths? What are the associated weaknesses? Which are the carriers or the courses which are suitable for dyslexic children? And most importantly, how to use this dyslexic strength in education. Let us come to the first strength. It is called the M strength, material reasoning. The 3D power. Some interesting facts. Royal College of Art, London, 35% of students at least are dyslexic. That is almost 2 to 3 times the normal population in dyslexic. MIT Media Lab. Dyslexia is so common there that it is called MIT disease. So what is this material reasoning? We live in a 3D world made up of millions of objects around us, solid, liquid, gas, matter, energy, continuously in motion and change. Dyslexics have extremely strong perception of the 3D world around us. This extremely strong perception of the 3D world around us gives them a very strong ability for 3D visualization. They can create matrix of images of any object, whether it's a building or a machine, inside their mind, turn it around, move inside it, whether they can follow the flow, texture, shape, size, color, everything. I'll explain with example, maybe then it will become more clear. Suppose you give an empty land to a dyslexic. He can visualize the full building there. He can change the design, change the sizes of the room, move around the rooms. He can go inside, look at the building from different sides, all in mind, very easily. So the building is a creative visualization. Give the building to him, he can visualize the interiors, create the interiors in his mind, shuffle around the interior objects. They are very easy, they understand machines very easily. Machines are moving parts, they are not stationary. So they understand how the relative motions happen. How, for example, in a car, how the fuel flows from carburetor to the pistons and how the energy is transferred. The right side, the gear assembly will look very complex to us. For a dyslexic, he exactly knows how much a gear is moved, how much the other gear will move. Human body, we are 3D system. We are basically 3D creatures, and bodies are very complex systems. So dyslexics can easily visualize the whole functioning of the body, whether it's movement of blood inside the body or pumping of the heart or the transmission of electrical signal through the neurological system. They are very good at this. But it does not stop here. It's quite ironic that dyslexics have difficulty with basic maths. However, advanced maths is very three-dimensional, and dyslexics excel in advanced maths. Humanities and subjects like law. What are these? These subjects have large number of concepts. Let us take political science. There's a concept of democracy, republic, rights of man, the rule of law. duties. Thousands of concepts are there which are connected to each other in a complex matrix. Dyslexics are able to store this information, this complex matrix, in a 3D visualization in their mind. Hence, they also excel in subjects like humanities and law. Now, let us see the other side of the coin. Because they are so good in 3D, they are not able to stabilize the images. Now, what is the written word? The written word is two-dimensional. So, dyslexics are strong in 3D, but at the same time, they struggle with 2D. Written words are two-dimensional, so they keep on flipping in their mind, and P, D, P, Q practically looks same to them. It's very interesting to know that Einstein used to write in image. Sorry, Einstein, I'm sorry, Da Vinci. Da Vinci used to write in image. He never used to write in how we write. He used to write in images. The second issue, the other side of the coin, is that weakness which dyslexic have because of the strong 3D strength, that they have unease of language output, means they are late talkers. We will find many dyslexic children, they start talking very late. Now, why is that? The reason is quite simple. The area of the brain which gives them this amazing 3D spatial abilities also is the area which is used for word sound processing. So that's why the word sound processing development is slightly delayed. Many times they also have too much to express. So which are the jobs or the careers which are fit for high M strength dyslexics? These people are 3D masters of the space. So we have people who mold the space around us, the architects, the engineers, they build the buildings around us, or the machines. They are also space interpreters, like painters, photographers, and filmmakers. They interpret the 3D space around us for us. They are masters in body space also. They make very good surgeons, radiologists, pathologists, because this involves movement and visualization of the space inside the human body. Even a small space like dentist, they make very good dentists. They are excellent space navigators, like sailors and pilots. And since, as I already mentioned, mathematics is a universe in itself. So they excel in advanced mathematics. So these are the careers which are suitable for high M strength dyslexics. Now, how do you use M strength, the material reasoning strengths, in education? These dyslexics are visual learners. Words are painful for them. Please use pictures, drawings, diagrams, animations, and videos for transferring knowledge. Use 3D models and experiments wherever feasible. And if you are able to show the actual thing or process, suppose you want to teach the various kind of leaves, take them to the garden and show it directly. This is how they learn faster. Let me now move on to the second strength, I strength. It is called interconnected reasoning, and the power is analytical power. First was material reasoning, 3D power. This is interconnected reasoning, analytical power. So what is interconnected reasoning? We live in a very complex world, an interconnected world. The whole universe is made up of millions of galaxies. Galaxies are made of stars. Stars are made up of planets. And every planet has a lot of, even Earth if you take. Earth is a very complex system in itself. If you take our human body, it's a very complex system. If you take even a cell of human or a cell of any organism, it's a complex system. Complexity is all around us. But at the same time, everything is connected to everything. Dyslexics have amazing ability. It is threefold ability. One, they can spot connections between anything and anything in this world. These connections can be like visual patterns, how the visual patterns of things are similar. Connections can also be related to cause and effect, how the different things are related by cause and effect or by association. But it does not stop like that. Dyslexics are amazing in spotting connection between words. Words which have similar meaning, which are paradoxes, or also words which have similar sound. Not only rhyming words, but also words like alliteration which have similar beginning. and also rhythmically sound similar word like missile or middle. They are rhythmically similar. They can spot those connections also. Their second strength is that they can view anything from multiple perspectives. I'll give an example. Suppose you ask a dyslexic to analyze television, a simple thing like television. He can analyze it from a technological perspective, how technology has developed from cathode ray tube to LCD to LED and other thing, how it is going. He can also examine TV, analyze TV from political angle, what impact it has on politics, or what impact it has on society, or what impact it has on economics. So same thing they can analyze from different perspective and different disciplinary approach. Basically, they are multiple perspective and multidisciplinary in approach. They cannot segregate anything in isolation. For them, everything is connected, which actually is a fact. The world is one connected system. Their third strength, that even in this different complexity, any complex system you give them or any complex piece of information, they're able to derive the essence and the gist of that. So this is the interconnected reasoning, which makes them excellent analysts. I'm giving certain examples. Jack Lawes is a naturalist. He has written many books on birds, plants, animals in America continent. His quote is very interesting. My connection with nature is not intellectual. It is deeply spiritual and emphatic. They feel the world much more strongly than a non-dyslexic does. Second is James Lovelock. He's a propounder of very famous hypothesis called Gaia hypothesis. Gaia theory says that Earth itself is like a living organism, and it also it has its own survival instinct. This is used to explain that climate change is Earth trying to protect itself against the global warming caused by the human beings. Third example is Douglas Merrill, very interesting character. He was Chief Information Officer at Google. If you see his career, he has studied economics, sociology, cybersecurity, computer programming, and cognitive science. So they move around disciplines very easily. Basically, they are born multidisciplinary. For them, knowledge is one. So moving from one subject to another subject is very seamless for them. Now the other side of this coin, because they have so many connections for everything. They can spot distant connections, close connections. Many times they miss out primary connections. For example, if you ask a dyslexic, how are you? For this simple question, a normal person or non-dyslexic would answer, what is an expected answer? Okay, I'm fine, or this or that. For a dyslexic, he goes into, he puts all the options in his mind for this answer. So they might many times miss out the primary connection. Secondly, because they are so good with words which sound similar or conceptually similar, they unintendedly substitute words while speaking. I personally do this a lot. So if I'm trying to tell, please shut down the TV, I might say actually end up saying please shut down the fridge. I substitute because TV and fridge are conceptually both electronic appliances. So unintended substitution happens. It is important because we know these weaknesses, because these weaknesses are very easy to identify. If these weaknesses are in your child, those strengths will also be there. Third weakness is distracted by environmental stimuli. So suppose now I'm focusing on this presentation, but if something happens in background, I'll be very, very badly distracted and my thought process might stop. Focusing is very difficult for dyslexic with interconnected reasoning. They are very disorganized in personal items. I have not brought the photograph. Einstein's library, if you see, it was a mess. But however, he knew where each book was. So they are able to store the information in a complex way that it reflects in the personal items. And the last is most important. They are poor classroom fit. They don't fit in classroom very well. Why is that? For dyslexics, the knowledge is one. So suppose, for example, so they need a top-down approach. If you want to teach them physics, you will have to start with what is physics? What are the different chapters of physics? and then you come to which specific chapter you want to teach. Then they need that structural framework in their mind to store the knowledge. Without that framework, if you suddenly give a piece of knowledge, or you start a chapter on, let us say, mechanics, they'll find it very difficult to store the information or understand it. So they need a top-down approach. That is because of how they analyze. They view the world as one. So they view knowledge as one. So if you want to start something, start from the top and then come to the specific topic you want to teach them. These are the jobs which are fit for IST dyslexics. Any complex systems which has lot of interconnections, natural science, zoologist, botanist, humanities, they excel in humanities. Their analytical skills are amazing. Even technology, software requires a lot of analysis. They make excellent inventors. Edison was from this category. Creative arts. Kunal Kamra is a famous comedian. He's a dyslexic. They are able to spot connections which normal people miss out. And that's where the strength of comedian lies, stand-up comedians. They make very good actors and dancers because they are able to see connections across between emotion and the feeling and the expressions across the spectrum. Even chef, there are thousands of ingredients are there. How do I combine them to make a tasty dish? So how do we use eye strength in education? Most important, please use top-down approach. Like I gave example of physics earlier, now I'll give example of history. So suppose you want to teach your child history, please start with what is history. Give him overview of the world history. In the world history, tell him where the Indian history lies. And then you come to the particular chapter, step by step, then they will understand and they will have the structural framework in their mind to store the information. The structural framework is very, very important for them. Suppose you're teaching, want to show them a movie or read them a book. To tell the gist of the book first and also give the keywords in a paragraph which are going to come. This keyword is very, very important because there is a dyslexic way of reading. For example, I'll tell for myself, I don't read line by line because I cannot read line by line. If I start reading line by line, my thinking process stops. I look at a para, identify the keywords, make the meaning of the para, just check it once again, and then move to the next para. It's a paragraph keywords style kind of reading. This is called dyslexic way of reading. So that's why keywords are very important for them. In studies, please use analogies. Simple analogies like that, how atomic structure is similar to solar system structure, associations and connections. For example, if you're teaching about Mughal Empire, please teach him also about the Ashokan Empire, because though both started from a very small thing, grew into big empires and then collapsed. There are a lot of similarities. So if you teach only Mughal Empire, the chances of him remembering in isolation are less. But if you teach in comparison, he will remember both. So more data, more connections are better for them. So don't think that for dyslexic, that lesser information is better. No, more information is better for them. Use multidisciplinary approach. So suppose you are teaching about, let us say Chennai city. You have to teach about Chennai city from all the angles. Its history, its economics, its politics, and its society. If more complete 360 degree knowledge of any subject sinks in easier with them and they remember it very thoroughly. Because that is their strength. We'll come to the end strength. This is called narrative reasoning or photographic memory power. So first was material reasoning, the 3D power. Second was interconnected reasoning or the analytical power. This is number 3, narrative reasoning, photographic memory power. For this, we need to understand how human memory functions. Human memory is of two types, long-term and short-term. Short-term things, like if I see around, I get so much of information. And if information which is not relevant, our brain processes and just leaves it. It does not store for long. Long-term memory is something which is stored in the mind. It is also of two types, declarative and procedural. Procedural memories is something which we learn by habit. For example, driving a car or riding a cycle. When you are driving a car, you are not consciously deciding that I'm going to change the gear. It automatically happens. It becomes a part of our body, part of our muscle memory. So that is the procedural memory. Other memory is declarative memory, which are the facts. Now, this declarative memory is also of two types. So please bear with me because this is very important. Declarative memory is also of two types. One is semantic or impersonal memory. Like for example, I have not seen molecule personally, but molecule knowledge I understand. I have not seen Antarctica, but I understand Antarctica. Anything which I have not personally experienced, which when it is presented to me as a fact and I store it, that is called impersonal memory or semantic memory. On the other hand, everything I have experienced personally in my life, which I have seen, tasted, or touched, or personally experienced, that is called personal memory or episodic memory. This is the thing with the dyslexics. They have very strong episodic personal memory. I think many parents will remember, will identify with this example. My daughter can remember 7-8 years ago, some marriage, what that particular auntie was wearing, what kind of jewelry she was wearing, what food was served in minute details, as if the memory is live in front of her. But at the same time, I'll tell you, this strong episodic memory comes at a cost of weaker procedural and semantic or impersonal memory. So in summary, it means they have very strong experiential memory. Whatever they personally experience, they remember it vividly. It's almost like there are large number of film rolls which are stored inside their brains. And because of this strong experiential memory, they have extremely vivid description ability. They can describe things in such vividness as if the things will come alive in front of you. It means that they are great storytellers. It is really ironic that many of the top writers are dyslexic. Kids or people who are supposed to have difficulty with reading and writing make such great novelists and screenwriters. I'll give you some example. Anne Rice, she's a best-selling author of Vampire Chronicles, over 100 million copies sold. John Irving, Cedar House Rules. Robert Benton, the famous Kramer versus Kramer director, also and writer of the movie. And Vince Flynn, he's a thriller novelist. He is one of the best-selling authors. These are all dyslexic with strong narrative reasoning strength. So which are the jobs which are fit for high end strength dyslexics? Obviously, they are storytellers, so poet, strong writer, novelist, screenwriter, literature, journalism. But they are also visual storytellers. So video game designers, they make excellent video game designers. They are very good in advertising. And there are many professions which require us to narrate and convince the person in front of us. So they are very good coaches, teachers, public speaking, politicians, sales and marketing, public relations, and also lawyers. So how do you use the end strength in education? We have to follow case-based learning. Give them something which they have experienced. Link it to something they have experienced. Give examples and stories. Build a story around it. Turn the study session itself into experience. Your kid will remember with how you said, what Papa told that particular day, what he was telling that day, in what accent he was telling. She will remember because it's a personal experience for her. Never give, they need context-based knowledge. Their whole world understanding is from the context of personal experience. If you give them abstract fact, it will not stick to them. If you say something like justice, you cannot see justice, you cannot experience justice in that way. So you need to bring it along with a story and some context of what they know. Link it to the familiar. Now, other side of the coin, like I told, they have weak semantic and procedural memories. So it means any abstract fact you give them, they will struggle with that. And because procedural memories are weak, they struggle with the daily tasks like brushing teeth or bathing. They also have difficulty in expressing. It is almost like I told, a lot of film rolls inside their minds. So when the conversation starts, one role leads to another role and they tend to drift from one topic to another. You might witness in many dyslexic like this. It's just that they have too much to express. Thirdly, In the younger age, their experience-based database is very small. For example, if your child has seen aeroplane once, whatever she sees on that aeroplane, suppose it has a rotor, she will assume that all planes are like this. So for her to have complete understanding of planes, she needs to see more and more and all varieties of plane. Then she'll be able to understand, okay, there are passenger planes, there are fighter planes. That is how it works. That Jack Law's naturalist example I gave earlier, he says that he remembers each and every robin. Robin is a bird he has seen in his life. And his understanding of the bird robin is from all the sightings he has done in his life. So that's how they remember. So when he has seen the robin only the first time, his knowledge will be incomplete. So at a younger age, for these experiential learners, their fluidity in thoughts will be very, very low. The last strength is called D strength, dynamic reasoning. The first strength was material reasoning, the 3D power. Second strength was interconnected reasoning, the analytical power. Third was narrative reasoning, the photographic memory power. And the fourth is problem solving power, dynamic reasoning. Interesting fact, Dr. Julie Logan's study in USA in 2007, 35% of US entrepreneurs or businessmen are dyslexic. It's a very high number. So what is dynamic reasoning? We live in a complex world. Yes, that I already told. But this complex world with imperfect data. Let's take stock exchange. We don't know everything about it. The variables are far too many in economic system. Take weather. We cannot predict the weather exactly because there are so many variables. So the world is full of many, many complex systems which have large number of variables with imperfect or incomplete data. That is how in the world we live in, all around us. And we have to make decisions based on that. Any administrative decisions an IAS officer and IPS officer makes is not based on 100% perfect information. Dyslexics with D strength have amazing ability. It's practically a magical ability. They process this incomplete data and somehow they come with a perfect solution or predict outcome, how this system is going to function. They are very good problem solvers as well as predictors, what is going to happen. I'll give some examples. Sarah Andrews is a famous geologist and author. She was working with a top petroleum corporation, which was into oil exploration. So she will look at the data in a particular area, the rock related data, the weather related, the soil composition related data, which was incomplete. With that incomplete data, she used to be able to put her finger on a point and say, this is where you're going to find oil. And more often than not, she was right. That made her a very successful professional. Glenn Bailey is a businessman from Canada. He had a pathetic school. He left the college in between and decided that he will start business. Somehow, he was very good in spotting business opportunities. He owns the biggest mineral water company in Canada. Vince Flynn, the author I already mentioned, he writes all his novels based on the open source information what is published in newspapers. He, in 1998, predicted 9/11 in his writings and rise of Islamic fundamentalism. They can see a system, predict where it will go. So they are very good, where there's information is incomplete, even then they are able to predict. So what is the other side of the coin of the D strength? This is how the D strength mind works. You give them a problem, they will start looking at some other place. They'll cut you off from their visual zone, go into daydreaming mode. What is actually happening is their brain is processing the incomplete data and trying to think for a solution. Suddenly they will find a solution, that's called the Eureka moment, and they'll tell you the solution. And you ask them, how did you arrive at this solution? In most cases, they will not be able to trace back how they arrived at the solution. It's some complex mechanism which functions in their brain. So which are the jobs which are fit for high D strength dyslexics? Any system which has a lot of variables and incomplete information. Economics as business is a classic example. So they make excellent CEOs and entrepreneurs. Tax, business consultant. In academics also they excel. Human health. You might wonder why oncologist and rheumatologist or immunologist. A diagnosis and course of treatment is decided by a doctor or in medicine on based of number of variables related to like blood pressure, to sugar level, to hundreds of things are variables are there. So they have to make sense of these variables, which information is very incomplete many times, and make a prediction which is the right diagnosis and which is the right course. They also excel as farmers, environmentalists, and ecologists. So how do you use D strength in education? Of all the strengths, this is the most difficult to use in schooling. Because this is real world problem solving, not ideal world problem solving. So what can we do? Please don't underestimate your child. Please teach him about economy, society, politics. Discuss with him. No need to read and write. Discuss with him. He will understand, he will interpret, and he'll enjoy this kind of things, subjects. And another suggestion, suppose you're buying a new car or a new house or any major family decisions you're taking, please involve your dyslexic child. Give him all the information. And trust me, he will come up with something which you had not seen. So the summary of the dyslexic strengths is like this. M, material reasoning, the 3D power. These are the dyslexics who make the shape and mold the world around us. They build buildings, they build machines. I, interconnected reasoning, the analytical power. These people, these dyslexics interpret the world around us, complex systems, make it easy for us to understand. And photographic memory power. These are the storytellers and the communicators. And D, the problem solving power. These are the people who solve real world problems for us. So I think it's a very fair conclusion to draw. Where will this world be without the dyslexics? Not in a very good place. So this is the summary of my presentation. A series of 8 advices to the parents. Number 1, have holistic and balanced perspective of dyslexia. This will help you to be confident about managing dyslexia. Your confidence will transfer to the kid and he will also be self-confident. Understand and accept dyslexic difference. Please accept that your dyslexic child is different. He's not defective, he's just different. Also accept the fact that dyslexic trajectory of growth is different. Don't try to put the non-dyslexic trajectory on the dyslexic. It will cause a lot of pain to the child. Accept it, be comfortable with it. You will be comfortable, child will also be comfortable with himself. Please join a parent support group. Nothing like sharing and learning from people who have traveled the way. Use interventions without fail. These help in improving reading and writing skills. Reading and writing is just the medium. Target is knowledge. Objective is knowledge. But reading and writing skills can be improved by using interventions. Please use that. Use occupational therapy. This help in concentration and coordination issues. Even activity like swimming is very helpful. Use technology without hesitation, without any sense of guilt or shame. Technology for reading assistance is very easily available. Please use it. Your child will enjoy. He'll gain a lot of knowledge. Use concessions offered by the boards. Don't feel that I'm doing something less or anything. Please use it freely. No problem. Use the concessions. This is 10th and 12th are just simple milestones which the child has to cross. After that, they are going to do very well. Don't worry. And lastly, and most important, please recognize and unlock the dyslexic strengths in your children. This will make them, let them be what they are. They are strong in themselves. Let them be best dyslexic that they can be. Let their career, their life is going to be centered around their strengths. So unlock those strengths and see how your child enjoys life and make life enjoyable for you too. So thank you all for this opportunity. I'm closing with this quote by Dr. Ed. Dyslexia isn't a tragedy. It's an exciting story filled with hope, opportunity, and promise. I hope I have been able to convince the parents here to view dyslexia differently. But this is like a mission for me and Mridula and my wife Rashmi. We really need to look at dyslexia differently and understand, and our interventions also accordingly have to change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. It was very, very, very informative for all of us. Let it be the explanation you gave it for how we should handle the kids, or the parenting and teaching methodology which we should how we should take care of it. And I guess everyone will agree that they are gifted by God with their high potential of visualization, which we cannot even match them in this regard, right? And their friends with the concept of mind, MIND, the material reasoning or interconnected reasoning or narrative